Digital Transformation for Effective Governance by Mr. Ajay Kaul, who's the head state and local government business, WWPS AWS India. A huge round of applause for Shri Ajay Kaul ji.
Fahim specifically for getting all of us together, and respected dignitaries from the government and the industry friends and folks. It's absolutely privileged to be here this morning. We heard a lot of things right from Honorable Minister of Odisha, Srimati Ramadevi ji, right, NSN Murthy as well. So I'm going to, start where NSN Murthy left. I think he talked about, oh, he's there. So he talked about three things, right? He talked about how do we look at e-governance making a lot more efficient and effective, right? He talked about how do we make India as a sandbox for global. And the third thing he talked about is how do we make replication a real possibility? What is getting as a best case practice of one state to replicate for other states, right? So with that in mind, let me start the presentation that I have put together. Somehow the clicker is not working, or it's working now. So I think post-pandemic, we've kind of started to getting back to the normal life, and I see a lot of us not wearing a mask today, which is truly a good sign. But the fact remains that what we have gone through in the last 2 years was not expected at all, right? And the way we have dealt with the situation has been phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And the reason I'm saying so, and that's the only good thing that has come out of this whole pandemic, is the adoption of technology across various sectors in India. And to the extent where it has been acknowledged worldwide. We are today touching almost every sector, be it healthcare, be it education, be it agriculture. Ramadevi ji talked about the seed traceability and how technology is enabling farmers to distinguish between the genuine seeds and the seeds which are not genuine at all. In healthcare, we saw during the pandemic times how teleconsultants, medicine helped millions of people in the country, because not everybody was affected with COVID, but there were people who were not well and not able to go to hospitals, right? And if I come back to e-governance, how has the e-governance model changed over a period of time? I think we need to start from there. If we have to look at how do we get e-governance to get to the next level, I think we have seen the way the overall e-governance model has evolved over a period of time. Just a few years ago, it used to be a one-way traffic of government only sharing, inputs with the citizens, to a stage now where it is a lot more interactive, and not only that, it is actually getting into a two-way communication mode. So the need of getting this a lot more effective, getting this a lot more efficient, is what is going to be enabled by technology. And if you look at how things have changed and the paradigm shift that has happened from the technology standpoint also, we saw a huge computerization era, which kind of was not well received at that point in time. We saw a lot of people those days fearing the loss of jobs and so on and so forth. But the way this whole adoption of computerization enabled people to look at a lot more value-based jobs is what enabled us to do a lot more better. I hope we remember those times of standing in the long queues to avail a railway ticket, right? And how the computerization of entire, IRCTC's system took away the entire pain and brought the automation and digitization to the forefront. I hope all of us remember the days when we used to have those 5-pager Indian Airlines ticket, right? Remember? And today, Bangalore Airport has recently initiated a facial recognition-based system where you can just walk in right up to the aircraft without being in need of giving either the ticket details or your identity details. So that's how far we have come. And that's where we had the automation era, when a lot of changes, a lot of processes were automated in due course of time, right? So where do we stand today now? Again, I'm going to allude to a lot of inputs that we received this morning. Ramadevi ji talked about that they're first and foremost focused on innovation. Now, it's very easy to say that innovation is the need of the hour, but how do you really put the mental framework to put the whole perspective in place so that you are truly able to innovate? You're truly able to innovate in an unconstrained manner, which is where literally an idea gets fructified into an outcome. And that's the phase where we are today in, which is the open digital ecosystem era. This is the era where there are no boundaries at all. This is the era where there is no limitations in terms of infrastructure, in terms of man hours, in terms of any underlying ecosystem that is needed to convert that idea into reality. And I'm not talking something which is, not being done and not being achieved. I'm going to talk about something that we all should be proud of, and what has actually culminated just from an idea which started off from the crisis we were in the last 2 years. All of you have heard about COVID? Yes? No? COVID? Yeah? Do you know how it all started? It started with few people coming together on what is happening everywhere in the country and elsewhere in the world, and how do we deal with that situation, right? Nobody had a clue. It was just an idea. And the number of people that we have in the country to be looked at pushed us to look at the scale of whatever initiative we are going to be thinking around on how to deal with, a scenario around what we were engulfed with, some time back. And that's when COVID came into action. This is one national platform which is the biggest in the world. This is one platform which has broken all the shackles that we used to be under just some time ago, thinking that India is still behind, India can't do much, India still needs to have regulations, policies, compliances, security, all of those areas to be looked at. But if there is one thing that we as a country have been able to achieve, is a feat on this platform which is not only acknowledged, appreciated, but it also deals with the real-time scenarios that all of us went through. And the way this whole journey, went on was where we had only few initial users to begin with. And you would remember that it was initially launched for people who were 60 and above, exigency workers, doctors, nurses, all of them. And that's how we kind of saw how it was going to evolve. Because the moment it's going to get open to the larger masses, it's going to create havoc, right? So from about just few million of views, it went up to almost 3 billion views. So imagine a platform where you have no scale, you have no idea, you have no past history of how it is going to perform, right? So the system had to be so robust that it had to have the capacity to look at the population of this country. And I'm sure you would remember that there were a lot of additions that kept on happening parallelly, which was by inclusion of the Aadhaar authentication, which happened on the fly. It was also incorporating the maps, so you could locate your nearest hospital or location by using map. You could enter the PIN code and get to the nearest location of your choice. And the best part, you could download the certificate there and then, digitally, right? Which you could also save in digital locker also. But then the fact is that accessing the site, doing all of that, what we did, downloading the certificate, locating the location, registering yourself with first vaccine, second vaccine, all of that was completely uninterrupted. With no downtime, with no buffering going on, is the beauty I'm talking about here. And you know what? There were so many people that came up, not only from India but outside, saying, you know what, this platform is not secure, it can be hacked, we have people, the best of the best people in the world who can hack the system. And they tried. They actually tried. And there was an instance when it actually came up as part of the discussion in Parliament also. But the fact remains that there was zero intervention or zero security breach till date. Let me spend some few minutes on how this journey, worked through this whole duration. And if you see the spikes, in a matter of days, when it was initiated for 60 plus, 45 plus, 18 plus, and look at the spike, which is like almost 1.2 billion a day transactions happening out here. And now, if you kind of look back, the way we are tuned to work, the way we are tuned to operate is that we identify an application that has to run. It could be any application on the e-governance front, on finance front, on any area front. We start creating a sizing of that this is the compute that I'm going to need. This is the storage I'm going to need. This is the infra I'm going to need. And then obviously you have to keep a buffer also because that infra has to reside for at least 7 to 10 years, right? And then we also realize that most of the times you don't reach more than 75% of the performance. And then when there are needs where you have to scale, you have no way. Even today with people looking at virtualization as an area to evaluate, there are still limitations there. And from where we are to billions of hits to today, where it is almost like not really active, it's absolutely fine. It's absolutely fine. So there is no, mammoth data centers, no mammoth servers, storage, networks, switches, security, softwares, licenses, all of that which was needed. And how it came into action, and I'm glad to inform you that there was not even a single third-party product that was leveraged here. Right from the CDN to API gateways, to load balancers, to Kubernetes, databases, and analytics. Everything happened on AWS cloud. Everything. And just to give you a sense once again, on the database front, this is the AWS native database that I'm referring to here, which went up to the level of almost 50,000 transactions per second. 50,000 transactions per second. So if you do the reverse math and check in how many nanoseconds did one transaction happen, we'll need a calculator for sure. But the beauty of this whole thing coming together is that this has been created in a templated way where it can be replicated, and you must have heard our Honorable Prime Minister talking to various countries of adopting this platform. You must have read that article from our External Affairs Minister where he went into one of the restaurants in US along with his son, and his son came out with a vaccine certificate that was manual, and he just, our minister opened his mobile and showed the digital certificate. And that's where today, where India is compared to some of the erstwhile technology, hubs of the world. And that's what this platform has given us. So this is one use case. I thought it's very important for all of us to understand that this involved data of people, which was very minimalistic, very minimum. It involved requirements of people which were not causing any concern on the data front. All the data is within the country. All the compliances, regulations, security parameters, everything has been completely taken care of. All right, now, sometimes some people from the states might think, well, this is too large a platform. For states, we don't really need to have that kind of a infra. We don't need to have that kind of a visibility. We don't need to have that kind of a, we don't have that data which is that massive. Absolutely fine. So we spoke about, as NSN was talking about, replication. What is it that one state does better than the others, which can be replicated by other states as well? So the other example I can refer to is Arogyasri Healthcare Trust. And this is where this state where we are today is where this is from. All of you would know that every state will usually have an policy framework to support people under, below poverty line. And this is what this application was supposed to do. This was supposed to enable the approval system of, okay, I'll just make it quick, 2 minutes more. So what this did was, this was not from a grounds up situation. This was an existing application which was deployed about 10, 12 years ago by one of the India's large services partner. But it was obviously having glitches, uptimes, and people were not able to log in to be able to get approvals to be taken care of. It took us 3 months to initiate a POC and then migrate it on the cloud. And I'm happy to inform you that from that time till today, there's absolutely zero time. And not only that, it has brought down the cost significantly. So I want to thank Mr. Jayesh Ranjan, Mrs. Rama Devi, who have supported, in ensuring that this goes into a seamless execution. I'm going to just rush a couple of thoughts quickly. The emerging technologies are going to play a big role. All of us heard about that, whether it is AIML, it's blockchain. Any technology that you talk of is possible only if you break the data silos, which is happening within the states today. Every department in the state has their own database, and they don't talk to each other at all. And that is what we need to break if we have to really make a difference. Geospatial is getting today leveraged across length and breadth of various sectors, whether it is on the farming front, whether it is on the transportation front, or healthcare front. We used to have earlier called as the standard view, which is the deployment of cameras across the cities. And then we used to have drones, as Rama Devi ji was talking about, creating a bird's eye view. And now with the satellite imagery, we're talking about God's view, where before the floods, for example, how big the farmland was, how good the farmland was, and post floods, how much damage has been done, helps people to clear farmer insurances very, very effectively and quickly. So probably my last slide. It is not just, cloud is not just an infra. It is not just deploying what you have in SDC today onto the cloud. It is not that. It is about getting to address all the services which are helping you to manage, what you can potentially do on the cloud. And the example here is right in front of you. This bar is where we currently are today in most of the states, which is where the systems are known SDCs. And the entire heavy lifting is done by the state's own people to ensure that the systems are just running. Forget about innovation. And to the extreme right is where we want the states to be. Because your job should not be to keep the systems up and running. Your job should be to actually put effective thoughts and innovations on the service delivery, for example. And this is the true adoption of the model that should be looked at. And lastly, cloud is not just a one step into a full and final strategy. It's a full journey. And it can just start with a DR. It can move on to a dev test environment, to a quality environment, and to a hybrid environment. We understand that there are databases within the states that are top secret, highly secret, which cannot be shared, absolutely fine. But a hybrid strategy is what will enable the states to look at a model which will have the best of both worlds. So with that, I end my presentation. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. What a wonderful presentation from AWS. I think AWS has been inspiring a lot of tech, corporates and startups across the country. A huge round of applause once again for Mr. Ajay Kaul.